Um, what our computer has been showing, and is that yes, we're going into World War III for next year.
Next year.
But what you have to understand is that this is projecting more of a global contagion.
You're watching CapitalCosm. My name is Danny. It is August 25th, 2025, and my guest today is the legendary forecaster himself. It's Marty Armstrong. Martin Armstrong, thank you so much for coming on the show, my friend.
Oh, it's always good to see you.
Yeah, likewise, Marty. Let's go ahead and dive in. We've got so much stuff on the table here. But for you right now, what should be on the radar screen for most people, most investors, the average person out there, considering the geopolitical chaos, the economic chaos, et cetera? What are you most focused on at the moment?
Well, I mean, I have warned Washington that um, I don't see a peace deal, and that I've warned them that um, really that the EU is just going to stab them in the back. They do not want peace, and look, that meeting, you had all those heads come over with even NATO. All right, they all met with Zelensky the day before. It was basically to show that they're with, Ukraine, not the United States, and they want this war. They need it. And what's going on now is they are really disgusting. I don't know, heads of state. I've never seen such horrible people, honestly. Um, they have instructed Zelensky to start attacking like all the pipelines to Hungary, Slovakia, etc., to cut off all the energy there. They know even if he did that, is that going to really change the economics of Russia? No. Okay. What this is about is retaliation against Hungary, which has been blocking any NATO or EU for Ukraine. And under Article 7, it must be they must have a unanimous. So they view Hungary as a thorn in their side. And they have given basically Zelensky the green light. And that's why recently he gave him an ultimatum: choose sides. Stop buying energy from Russia. What they're really trying to accomplish here is regime change in Hungary. That's what this is all about. Mm-hmm. They want Orban gone. So this is just part of the whole escalation. If they can get him gone, then they would get Ukraine into even NATO. I mean, they need war. Their economy is absolutely imploding. All right. You have everything that they did with the COVID, the climate change, and then the sanctions on Russia. The German economy is actually shrinking. So the number of possible jobs is declining. Only Germany and Japan are actually shrinking in size. All right. Then you have NATO demanding 5%. So you're looking at, an 8% of GDP that's completely negative. So Europe is going into a depression, basically, into 2028. That's what our computer's been showing. We have a recession, but they're going into a depression. And this is why they're desperate. This is what governments do.
Yeah, here's the 30-year yield on the 30-year German bond. And I mean, it's been moving up consistently.
Yeah, I
And
mean,
it's at a high not seen since what, 2011, so 14-year high.
yeah, look, this is everybody over there knows we're going into war. All right, why would you buy any bonds from any of these European governments? They're going to default. They always do. You can go on eBay and buy, the bonds that they defaulted on from World War One. Um, it's that's why the gold has been moving from London and Zurich over to United States and some to Singapore. I warned our clients, look, get the hell out ASAP, because once that first bullet is shot, they're putting in capital controls. They're trying to do the CBDCs over there as soon as October, but
Wow.
they're going to cancel the currency. I would say as soon as January, or certainly by March of next year. You had Spain already, so you can't take out more than 3,000 euros out of your account in cash without government permission. They'll just cancel the currency. This is what they always do.
So what does that entail, canceling the currency?
They do it routinely. They just say these old currencies, they're worthless. That's it. You got to exchange them for the new ones. But in this case, they're not going to give you new ones. It's going to be CBDCs. So they're going to say you got 30 days or whatever to deposit all your cash into your account. Otherwise, it's worthless. If you get a 20-pound note from Britain, even from 20 years ago, it's worthless. Canada canceled all its high denomination notes. All right, Switzerland did. They routinely cancel the currency. This is why the dollar is really the reserve currency. About 70% of paper dollars are outside the country. The U.S. has never canceled its currency. All right. And I don't know what's out in the news yet because I get so busy I don't get a chance to check. But
Right.
Trump is wants to issue $500 notes. Why? All right. He's going in the opposite direction of the rest of these crazy people. All right. I was on a flight when they canceled, we're coming out with the new $100 bill. And they were running videos on international flights. We did not cancel the old ones. They're still good. All right. Because people outside the country think, oh, the old one's no longer good anymore. It's routine.
Does that imply that they're anticipating inflation? Is that why they need higher denomination bills?
No, most of them it's outside the country. And once you move to CBDCs in Europe, the Fed has already said it's not going to. Trump has said he's not going to. Constitutionally, they cannot. They would need a search warrant to look at your account. This is why the only way around that is to allow the banks to do this. So the banks are creating these stable coins. But they're really war bonds. In 1863, what they did was you can look them up. They're called national currencies, and they're still valid. They told the banks to buy debt to fund the Civil War, to offset the deflationary aspect of it. They said, we'll allow you to issue paper currency against it up to 90% of what you have. So the bonds were to be deposited with the Treasury, and they could issue the coin, the paper currency against it. So, you have a whole slew of banks in each one. the currency is the same design, but it then says like, Philadelphia Bank or New York Bank or whatever. So it was a clever way of funding the Civil War. The banks bought the debt, and then they issued currency against it. This is the Genius Act all over again.
Mm-hmm.
We issue the stable coins backed by U.S. government debt. All right, so under the Biden administration, these neocons, honestly, they all they ever look at is their own objective. They have no experience in world economy, anything. So you had Blinken, remove Russia from the SWIFT system. That was a red flag to the entire world. Then he had the audacity to threaten China. If you help Russia, we'll do the same to you. Really? China had 10% of our national debt, you idiot. So that created BRICS. All right. And this is why they did that. It was because, if we don't do what Blinken orders us to do, he'll remove us from SWIFT. Screw you. All right. So that created BRICS. Meanwhile, he threatened China. So China's been dumping debt. They, in $50 billion clips. All right. So now all of a sudden, to fund the U.S. national debt, if you threatened everybody outside, they're not going to buy. So you need a new buyer. What do we do? Oh, stable coins.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So that's why I say they're war bonds. Because you basically, Blinken threatened everybody with a complete idiot, without no understanding of what he would do to the world economy. So if you can't, sell new debt, that's when governments collapse. Because we're in these Ponzi schemes. You issue new debt really to pay off the old. It's rolling it.
And debt to GDP levels could be any arbitrary level, just insofar as there's a buyer of the debt.
Right. It's that the ratio doesn't mean anything. The ratio in Japan is the highest. All right, but the Japanese government buys the debt itself. The holders of U.S. debt in Japan is not the government; it's the corporations, as a hedge against their own government.
I see.
So sometimes you got to pick up the rug and look a little bit closer. It's and I mean, we have a lot of clients in Japan. I know what they do. All right, it's they buy the U.S. debt against their own government. So if you look at it, that's why the debt to GDP ratio in Japan is so high. And everybody says, how can this constantly be going on? It's because the government buys everything.
Mm-hmm.
They had even in one press statement is, the government bought 95% of the auction. Oh, that's a good thing? It means you couldn't sell it.
Yeah.
All right. I mean,
well,
but of course, the press spins it the other way. Oh, look at that. Japan's strong. It bought its own debt.
It's fascinating you liken the stable coins to war bonds. Would you still say that metaphor holds true today? And doesn't that imply that we are anticipating war down the line? And if that's the case, then with who?
What our computer has been showing is that, yes, we're going into World War III for next year.
Next year.
But what you have to understand is that this is projecting more of a global contagion, not like us against them type thing.
Mm.
So you're all I can say, it's kind of like it's a contagion. Like Rome overthrew its Tarquin king in 509 BC. Within, a few months, Athens says that's a good idea, and they overthrew their tyrants, and democracy was born. You look at American Revolution, all right? The French go, hey, that's a good idea. French Revolution, 1789. Tiananmen Square happens.
Mm-hmm.
Berlin Wall falls a few months later. And I remember them saying, "Oh, it fell because the because of the communications are today." No, it's always been this way. I mean, how long did it take somebody from hop on a ship from Rome to reach Athens? A week.
So you're not seeing two clear-cut sides going at it against each other. It's more so of a free-for-all of a bunch of different pockets going at it.
Yeah, it's what happens. Our computer's been very good in correlating everything, and I've learned a lot from it over the years. And war comes only during periods of economic stress. When everybody's doing fine, fat and happy, you don't see war.
Mm-hmm.
Turn the economy down, and then you get the problems. And they tend to be like look at the revolutions of 1848. Starts, down in Sicily, all of a sudden it sweeps all of Europe. Even the German flag today is from that revolution. It overthrew the French government. They become a contagion. I don't know how else to explain it, but it's like, hey, that's a good idea. They did that. We should give it a shot here. And so what you're seeing currently is wherever there were historical disputes, like Thailand, Cambodia, the last time, 1987, all of a sudden they're back at it. India, Pakistan, all right, same thing. You're looking at North versus South Korea. Russia sending troops in, and Japan, flexing its muscles. Taiwan. So you're looking at numerous conflicts, Middle East, that are not necessarily related to Ukraine. So that's why I mean it's more like a contagion. I don't know how else to explain it.
But won't alliances be formed over time? Won't there be like an emergent alliance where this clusters to one side and another side? Wouldn't North Korea, China, Russia, I don't know, Venezuela, like wouldn't they all find common ground and just cluster as one opposing side to?
Yeah, I mean that's if you get involved. Depends how the U.S. gets, its back up here. In my discussions with DC, I was, I mean, they know pretty much where I stand. I had one conversation with somebody who was, basically one step away from Trump.
Oh,
I
wow.
thought they would think I was conspiracy or, whatever. But I said, look, we should get the hell out of NATO. They're going to do a false flag to try and drag us in under Article 5. And I thought that was, they would think I was crazy. The response was, no, we know you're right.
Wow.
I was assured that Trump has said no troops going to Ukraine. Which does, as I said before, went to dinner at Mar-a-Lago back in March of 2020. And that's when Trump had said that he wanted to pull the troops out of Afghanistan. But there he said the reason. And he said that he was tired of writing letters to their families to say your son died for God and country. And he said, what are we doing there? They've been fighting over borders for 1,000 years. What difference are we going to make? Now, that really forced me to reassess because, as you know, I've met many heads of state over the years. And I didn't think about it until he said that. And then I think the difference was that nobody, if you're a career politician, they tell you don't think about the people that die on the battlefield. Otherwise, you can't do it.
Mm-hmm.
And like the head of Pfizer or something, every vaccine kills somebody. All right. We're all not the same. And so they're just basically, well, you don't think about that. Yeah, it's collateral damage. All right.
You got to think about the greater good.
Yeah. When they were doing the movie on me, I sat down in Munich and Marcus Vetter's, co-producer Karen, she asked me, how can you advise on $1 trillion portfolios? And I said, well, I just don't think about it. And then she said to me that she had interviewed some top brain surgeon in Germany. And he said once he thought what he was actually doing, that if he made any mistake, somebody wouldn't talk again or walk or whatever, he said he could no longer do it. And so I understand that's what I mean. When Trump said he was tired of writing letters to families, he thought about it. And in contrast with everybody that I else met, including Maggie Thatcher, all right, they don't think about that.
Yeah, they disassociate.
It's collateral damage. You don't think about it, otherwise you can't do it. And that's true. Even myself, I've advised on the biggest portfolios in the world. Why? Because I can walk in, just say, yeah, do this, do that, whatever. Other people are like, oh my God, if I make the wrong thing and they lose $200 million, they can't do it. If you think about the money, you can't do it. That's why there aren't that many of us that were into really big numbers and international hedge fund manager. We would just call it, phone numbers. Because you say, buy me $1 billion of this, sell that, whatever. Then you go out to dinner, it's $300. It's you can't spend that kind of money. That's why we would just call it. It's just phone numbers. You can't even visualize what would that buy because you can't spend it.
Yeah. Well, $300 today would buy you a Big Mac and a large Coke.
Yeah, that's true. But there's this difference that, and Trump, when he said that, made me see that that's the humanity in him, not the indoctrinated, career politician.
Hey guys, quick pause from the podcast, but this is something I feel is really important to let you in on. Back in 2020, before I even started this channel, I was looking for an edge, a way to find the big opportunities most investors never even hear about. That's when I found Capitalist Exploits Insider. From day one, it felt like I suddenly had my own team of world-class market pros working for me, digging up trades all over the world, doing the deep research, and handing me ideas that had massive asymmetric upside. Stuff that I would never even think about. Since then, my gains with them have blown past the S&P and the NASDAQ, and it's honestly the single best newsletter I've ever subscribed to. And that's not me blowing smoke. That's for real. I've interviewed their publisher, Chris McIntosh, more times than I can count. In fact, my latest conversation with him is linked in the description box down below if you want to check that out, as well as the pinned comment. And every time, I'm reminded why I've stayed a member for years. Right now, they're offering a special $1,000 discount on the Insider subscription, but it's only for CapitalCosm viewers, so you're only going to get it by clicking the link down below in the description box or the pinned comment. You're not going to find this anywhere else. Click the link, lock it in, and start getting the same game-changing research I've been using since 2020. Yeah, that's the unique value of proposition of Trump. But go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, that's fine. I mean, so when I was just told he's not going to send any troops to Ukraine, I actually believed it.
Mm-hmm.
Only because I had that dinner at Mar-a-Lago before.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, I would go, yeah, really? How do I know? Politicians don't always tell the truth. But that would be in his character. Now, maybe bombing or something like that. That's one thing. Like in Iran, but not sending in troops. So I think this is what disturbs Europe the most. They prefer Americans to die. Even when de Gaulle had told Americans he wants all foreign troops out of France. And he refused to join NATO, and that's why France has its own nukes and outside of NATO. And the response was, because he wants all Americans out. And the response that they went back to him, does that include the dead ones that are buried there? So they have no problem for Americans to die to support their socialistic agenda. And I can tell you that this is what is the backdrop to the whole migrant crisis over there. I was just speaking recently with Romania. I can tell you the second election, Macron, I was told, physically went there to make sure the EU won. Because they regard the Eastern Europeans, and I've actually heard very derogatory statements saying that, you don't care about the Ukrainian people. They're all just, 1.8 million are dead now. They don't care. Oh, we're fighting for what? What are you fighting for? Democracy? They have no elections. He's outlawed the press, outlawed the religions, everything. This is democracy? This is what you're fighting for? And, oh, we're not giving up any land. Russia has to leave and surrender. All completely unrealistic expectations. And this is this is the whole problem. The derogatory things that I've heard, what the hell, they were all communists anyhow. This is the view of Ukrainian people, Romanians, even Polish. Wake the hell up. It's Hungary. They don't give two shits about Hungarian people. They really do not. All right. They're letting in all these migrants. Why? Romania was just told they must take 100,000 Africans and Middle East. Why? Why are you doing this? Completely different culture, Islamic, and they're fighting with churches, burning church. I mean, what the hell is going on here? They think that they can draft these people to form an army to go after Russia.
You know what? You heard something similar to this about a year ago. I can't remember what congressman it was or senator it was here in the United States, but they said that perhaps a lot of these illegal immigrants or these visa holders can fast track their citizenship by joining the military.
Yes.
Remember that one?
Yeah.
It's kind of the same
That's in
thing.
the U.S. They were doing that.
Mm-hmm.
This is what they're doing in Europe because there's a resistance to drafts. I had also a source who attended the Vienna Peace Conference. And when it was over, he called me. He says, "This has got nothing to do with peace anymore. This is everybody was talking about war, setting up drafts, etc. They do not want peace. And economically, they're collapsing. So an example of that is like when Biden put the sanctions on Russia and gasoline prices went up. What did he say? Oh, it's Putin's inflation. As if Putin did it, right? They always have to blame somebody on the outside. So this is what's going on in Europe. It's Putin, Putin, Putin. And if he wins Ukraine, he'll take the rest. Europe has got nothing that he wants, or Russia. All right, you have to buy all your energy from Russia. All right, forget gold. I mean, what do you have that would be of any benefit? Nothing. All right, you had Hitler. All right, they had the Jewish conspiracy going after the Jews, and it was the propaganda was that communism was a Jewish conspiracy thing because of Trotsky, etc. So that was really the whole thing against Jews, supposedly, but it was really anti-Semite to begin with. But so this is really pretty much what it comes down to. That they need war. Hitler was more like besides the Jewish issue, what did he do? He confiscated all the art. He didn't bomb Paris because he thought it was pretty. So he wasn't trying to destroy it, just conquer it. And Putin has no interest in Europe. The Russian people aren't interested in doing that. Americans aren't interested in going to occupy Russia or China, and China, they're not interested in occupying. I mean, those ideas are 18th century, 17th century empire building nonsense. That's when that really was all set in motion by the French physiocrats who said wealth is agriculture. So what happened was that started the empire stuff, colonization. Oh, the more land we have, the richer we are. All right. So that's what Adam Smith, when he wrote his Wealth of Nations, was a retort to that. It's not just agriculture. All right. If you're the blacksmith and you make a saddle and you sell it to the farmer, the French physiocrat said you're a parasite living off of the wealth. Whereas, basically Smith said, no, if he sells a saddle to somebody in France or a farmer sells some wheat to somebody in France, they both come back with gold. So it's all the same.
Yeah.
So it's the productivity of a nation that is its wealth.
Yeah. It's productivity distilled. I mean, that's essentially money, right? I mean, it just distilled productivity.
Yeah. I mean, it's you can have all the resources. Russia's the richest country in the world from a natural resource perspective. It's got about 75 trillion in natural resources, but it doesn't have the people to bring it to market. And this is why both Hitler and Napoleon wanted to conquer it.
Mm.
It's the richest country around.
Right. So, going back to the contagion aspect of all this that you're looking at next year, what does this pit the United States against? For us Americans, who's going to be, I mean, are we going to be involved in a kinetic war with another country or countries while the rest of the world goes at it as well?
That's what I've been trying to prevent. I can't stop World War III. The best I think you can do is reduce the amplitude.
Because it also looks like they're planning for regime change in Venezuela now. Granted, they tried 4 or 5 years ago with Guaido. That didn't work out. Now looks like they're going for round two. What's your view on what's going on in Venezuela? They put a $50 million bounty on Maduro's head. Granted, he had a bounty before, but they just upped up the ante. What do you make in terms of what's going on in Venezuela, and then in terms of what are some of the potential flashpoints as it relates to the U.S. involvement in a war in next year's World War III scenario?
Well, the whole thing with Venezuela, Mexico, and Canada is over drugs. There's more fentanyl coming in from Canada than there is from Mexico. But Trump is trying to stop that trade. He's actually doing the concerned about how many people are dying from it, etc. So that is, look, I mean, Venezuela was kind of like, Noriega, how much money can we make off the drug traffic? And I believe that Putin understood that and basically kind of gave him the green light. I'm trying my best to make it as much as I known as in the various circles that I can, but Putin is probably he's the smartest man at the table. I have the declassified documents from Clinton. Even he said when he met him, he says, "This guy's really smart." He's laid down so many red lines, and NATO has crossed every one. And you can look it up in psychology. It's called rally around the flag. It's critical, like a false flag. You must get your opponent to attack you. Then psychologically, people will sign up. Like Pearl Harbor. After Pearl Harbor, then, okay, people volunteered to go into the army. You need that sort of an attack. And this is why they have crossed every red line that Putin has put down. And I've even spoken to Ukrainian military. They were told just to go to the border. That order to invade Kursk came from MI6. All right. Okay. We'll invade Russia. That will force him to do so. And he didn't respond. You give long-range missiles, that's it. They give long-range missiles. He didn't respond. He knows where this goes. He knows it's World War III, if he does. And NATO's been trying to bait him all along. He took the bait initially to go into the Donbass. That was all orchestrated and set up. Victoria Nuland was handing sandwiches out at Maidan. You had John McCain on stage, and you can still see his video. It's on my site. They took it off of YouTube to hide it. We're with you. This is all about peace. This is your moment. All this other nonsense. Total bullshit. And that leaked phone call from Victoria Nuland, they handpicked the government. They stuck in an interim government, unelected. They're the ones that started the civil war against. They were told instantly, go attack the Russians in the Donbass. So then there was the Minsk agreement, and you had Merkel, who completely shocked me. I never heard any head of state admit that they signed a peace agreement and said, well, we never really intended to honor it. We were just buying time for Ukraine to build an army. That shows categorically this was intended to create World War III. She said it. It made the press everywhere. We're just buying time for Ukraine to build an army.
Well, it looks like these guys are all slowly but surely losing power as time goes on. You have a number of different elections happening in Europe soon, as it relates to the German election, the French election, even the UK election. All of these sovereigntist parties, these more so right-wing parties, are on the move up. They're trending upward. Aren't these like these technocrats that have ruled over Europe the last 50 plus years or so? Aren't they seeing an end to their rule? And could a new guard prevent some sort of altercation with Russia?
I would like to think so, but I think also this is why they're pushing for war ASAP.
Mm-hmm. Cornered fox.
If they can start something, create some sort of false flag, then you don't change horses in midstream. This is what they're counting on. I'd have to run the computer in all the various different elections, but it's they're pretty, disgusting. Once you hand power to anybody, they don't want to give it back. That's why George Washington started the Order of the Cincinnati. Cincinnatus was a general. He was given dictatorship for a year to save Rome during the Republican period, and then he handed back the power, went back to his farm. So they created. George Washington didn't want to become president until he surrendered the army. And I even have a document that was actually signed by him and General Knox, the Order of the Cincinnati. You can look them up. And it was in honor of that Roman general. Hand back power to show, see, I'm not going to hold it. Mm-hmm. All the rest of these people, they will fight tooth and nail to retain power. And look at NATO. NATO should have been shut down when communism fell. When the Warsaw Pact fell, they should have been closed. Their only purpose in life is war. I saw the internal memos. They were very upset because all the money was going to climate change. And those internal memos, what they were saying, how do we remain relevant? We only remain relevant by saying Putin wants to invade Europe.
Mm-hmm.
And if you be objective here, look at the propaganda. All right. They keep pushing the same narrative that was Khrushchev on Putin. Oh, he wants to take Europe. I was in D.C. I've been called in on some financial stuff with the Reagan administration. So I was there at the time when Russia and Gorbachev stood up and Reagan wanted to go meet him. And I know what was said because I was told. All right. They couldn't say he was a communist. So the neocons said, you can never trust a Russian. Reagan said, screw you, and he went.
Hmm.
So this is the way they operate. If you look at all these heads of state in Europe, and I spoke to 3 countries, and I asked, has anybody picked up the phone and called Putin? Give me a name, please. None. Trump called Putin, and they were all upset. Why? Because these neocons tell them never speak to the enemy. Why? Because if you speak to the enemy, maybe there might be peace.
Right.
We don't want peace. All right. Even if you read Sun Tzu, I mean, the art of war is if you do not understand your enemy and yourself, you will lose. You have to understand his thinking process.
Where they're coming from.
Yeah, I mean, my father was, with Patton, and Patton, read Rommel's book on tactical warfare, which was being taught to all the German, generals. And when he won, he said, he wasn't facing Rommel directly, but he said, Rommel, I read your book. You have to know it's my father always taught me it's not what you think, it's what the other guy thinks.
Perception is reality. Yeah.
If he thinks, that he's going to respond according to what he believes.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the whole key. I had some people like, oh, you, because I appear on Russian TV too, and they, oh, I said, listen, if you do not talk to them, I like to hear what questions I'm being asked. It shows me their thinking process. I'm sorry if you don't like that. That's tough shit.
Yeah. That's a you problem in that case.
Yeah,
Well, hey,
it's not that you agree or disagree, but you have to listen to what their reasoning and their thinking process is.
mm-hmm.
Because everybody's going to perceive their enemy basically one way or another. Our neocons, oh, Putin wants to resurrect the USSR. No, he doesn't. The Russian people wouldn't accept that.
Yeah. And Russia is billionaires. I mean, they allow for wealth
Exactly.
accumulation, private property. Like Russia is just as much of a capitalist nation as any other.
Right.
Maybe with China, for that matter. I mean, they have billionaires too.
Yeah, China. I mean, I think they even have more than we do. But look, this is reality. When Yeltsin turned to Putin, he had over 75% approval rating. Why? Because he wasn't a communist and he wasn't an oligarch. And that's what the Russian people wanted. They didn't want to go back to communism. The same thing in Eastern Europe. I have friends there. No way. Not interested.
So speaking of communism, you had this recent news item of Trump buying or not Trump, but the federal government under Trump, obviously, buying a 10% stake in Intel. And now you have a quote here today from Trump says government will make deals like Intel stake, quote unquote, all day long. So it looks like there's more to come. I mean, what do you make of this? It looks like we're going to be looking at more of these type of deals coming down the pike. Nationalizing the means of production here is what is this a symptom of? What are we looking at here?
Mainly because the bulk of your chips come from Taiwan. And the Biden administration made sure that they instigated the potential for war with Taiwan. Before we had agreed to what was known as the One China policy. Okay, so we agreed that Taiwan was technically really part of China. And that was fine. China didn't have to go in and take Taiwan. Everybody agreed technically. Yeah, okay, fine. So they didn't have to prove a point. When you have Pelosi hop on a plane, you're independent, stand up, all this stuff. Now you got a problem. Okay. In Asia, it's basically saving face is a big issue. And now you've basically, the Biden administration flat out right was promoting war with China over Taiwan.
Mm.
And they deliberately did this. They overthrew basically a long-standing settlement, and that made the whole problem. And then you started getting military drills, etc. So the technology problem is that the bulk of the chips come from Taiwan. So if China eventually does take Taiwan, and if I were them, I would coordinate it with something in Europe.
Get a distraction, so the left hand doesn't know what the right hand's doing, or
look, you start war on numerous fronts, and they can't sustain it.
Mm-hmm.
That's what brought Napoleon down. All right. You had Churchill and FDR and Stalin sitting together against Germany. All right. This is the big problem that you end up with. And if you had Kalis, who is a ruthless neocon, she met with with China's representative, and I had sources that were there, and I can tell you that she arrogantly said that China should, basically tell Russia to surrender, and not to interfere with them really taking down Russia. And he got so angry at her, he made it very clear. He says, "We are not prepared to allow Russia to lose."
Mm.
And he said, because we know we would be next. So I don't know how much got into the press, but I know what was said.
Interesting.
And which is absolutely true. If they took Russia out, they're going after China too.
Isn't this the old playbook with Nixon, though? I mean, could this be what they're doing with Russia, trying to butter Russia up so they can kind of separate them from China, so China becomes a little bit more isolated?
It's look, they were separated thanks to Nixon before, and now they pushed them together.
Mm-hmm.
So in that sense, you are looking at North Korea, China, definitely supporting Russia against NATO. They know this is not a war with Ukraine. That's all pure propaganda. It's NATO that they're fighting. They know that. You had, Boris Johnson. You can even look that up. He made the front pages of Norwegian press. He openly said UK is in a proxy war with Russia. Publicly said it. We all know everybody is, but to say it publicly, to make it their front newspapers, that's something different. So, I mean, There's no way that China's going to allow Russia to fall. Not going to happen. And this is a war with NATO. And if I were China, if Russia, they tried to go after Russia, I would then take Taiwan. Then what are you going to do? How many wars can you fight at the same time? It's attrition.
Yeah. Well, hey, Marty, fascinating talk as always. But before we close out, I want to ask you about the panic cycle that we talked about last time. Are we still looking at a panic cycle coming down the pike soon?
On our war models and the euro, it's all for 2026. The panic cycle we had in August was very interesting. That's when Putin met with Trump.
Interesting.
And then you got the directional change, and what the computer has shown is going to increase in volatility from the first week of September into about mid-September. But I've warned Washington. Very nice. I'm glad you're coming to this conclusion, but Europe is going to stab you in the back. They have no intention of honoring anything you do in Alaska. They want war. You all of a sudden have Zelensky saying, "Oh, the Constitution forbids me giving up any territory." 1.8 million Ukrainians are dead. They're trying to hide that number. What are you fighting for? Crimea, the signs are in German, in Russian. They're mostly Russian people throughout the whole Donbass. Crimea has 15%, Tartars from the old Mongol invasion of 1240. They're not Ukrainians. He's outlawed everybody's language, their religion. He is a ruthless dictator. That's why he will not stand for an election. I told Washington flat out right, I'm sorry. You're not going to get peace unless you remove Zelensky. He is a puppet. Look, I had staff there, both in Donetsk and in Kiev. When this thing started, and there was that whole column of tanks, Russian tanks that right up to Kiev, I was concerned. I called. I said, "Hey, are you all right?" And what I was told by my staff, it's okay. It's just a show of force. They're not doing anything. It's Putin did not want to take all Ukraine. That's all bullshit too. Kiev was the first capital of the Rus or the Russians. It was destroyed by the Mongols in 1240. So to him, he is a history buff. Kiev to him is kind of like London is to us, the motherland.
It's where it all started.
Yeah, it's all the propaganda. Oh, Ukraine was never a country. Ukrainians were no more than like the Kurds in Iran. They never had a country. Sorry. The coinage was from the early Russians. The symbol they use for Ukraine is from the coinage, basically, of Russians from the 13th century. It's all bullshit.
Yeah. Well, Marty, it's been a pleasure having you on as always. Anything else you want to mention, talk about before we wrap things up here?
No, not really. Just hunker down, watch what the hell's going on. It's we've been cursed. We do live in interesting times.
Yeah, the old Chinese proverb. So, where can people find you if they want to see more of your work?
ArmstrongEconomics.com. It's completely open and free. We don't even sell advertising. You don't have to put in any emails. We keep it as an open source for the world. We're not blocked anywhere, and You can look at it in Russia, China, wherever. It's everybody knows it's just an open source, and the forecasts come from the computer, not from me personally. So I mean, the computer ends up being right. I'm the one that ends up being wrong if I go against it.
Yes. So to kind of recap, panic cycle starting in September, leading all the way out until 2026. Is that the correct forecast?
Um, well, the panic cycle is on the euro and on war for 2026 yearly level. The volatility should end up. We have a panic cycle, I think, mid-September on some markets and stuff like that. But from September, the first week of September on, markets will make adjustments. I think you're going to see an increase in the probability of war because Europe is probably, you may see it starting at that point in time where they're, it becomes maybe a little bit more obvious that they're not playing games with Trump. They're anti-Trump at this point.
I see. Well, all right, Marty. It's a pleasure having you on, guys. If you enjoyed this podcast, drop us a like and comment "Go Marty Go" in the comment section. If you disagree with anything, that's fine too. But let me know what you disagreed on. Let me know what you agreed on as well, because I do in fact read all the comments, and I will be replying to a select few of them as well. I know the comments come in, hot and heavy, and sometimes a little too much to be able to answer each one. But I will pick out a few to answer. So, drop your thoughts down below, guys. Also, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss another episode, and liking, subscribing, commenting. Doing all the YouTube stuff goes a long way in helping push this video and the channel up in the YouTube algorithm. So if you'd like to get this message out to as many people as possible, then doing your share in the YouTube stuff certainly does go a long way. And then finally, check us out on Substack at capitalcosm.substack.com to get early access, ad-free versions, and uncensored versions of all of my content, as well as a chance to ask any of my guest questions and make guest recommendations as well, and the opportunity to DM me on Substack as well. So thank you so much for your time, guys, and I will catch you later. Bye.